Hey guys, I'm back. So we just got done talking about Jonah, and we were talking about how Jonah basically just didn't want to do what God told him to do, and then ended up doing what he was told to do, but he ended his story just ticked. He was just mad because the outcome wasn't what he wanted. And so the chapter 4 ended with God saying, "Shouldn't I feel sorry for such a great city?" So it kind of led me as I was like praying and really thinking about what to talk about next, to talk about anger. You know, in my own life, I'm kind of going to get personal for a minute, so bear with me. But I've been dealing with feeling angry. And not necessarily like, raging, I want to punch someone angry, but dealing with that feeling of being angry. We're approaching March, and that's a hard month for me because my father's birthday is that month, and this is the month they diagnosed him with cancer, almost 18, well, almost actually 20 years ago now. And just a lot in my job, and I work in a very dark workplace. And what I mean by dark is a very like negative, heavy place. And so it becomes very draining. But all of that aside, it kind of leaves this residual feeling of anger. And there's a difference between worldly anger and godly anger. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that correlation and contrast for a minute. Um, where I'm going to church, our pastor talked about Moses. And if you guys know anything about Moses or have heard about him, he's lived quite the life. He dealt with a lot of trial and tribulation from birth. I mean, he was born in a time where they were literally murdering every single boy baby. That was Hebrew. Okay, that would invoke some anger. But the part I want to kind of focus on with Moses is chapter 17, the water from the rock. So the people of Israel have already crossed the Red Sea. They've already come into kind of the wilderness, that median point before they go into the promised land. And it's right after they actually started receiving manna from heaven. The whole story about that is before this. But at their command, so I'm just going to start reading and then I'm going to pause at certain points, kind of like I do. At the Lord's command, the people of Israel left Sin, which that name sin, and that word is not to be confused with the actual word of like sinning, like being a sinner, or like I don't want to say evil action, but like actions against God. It's just the name. It's just a name. Desert, and moved from place to place. So they were nomadic. The people of Israel were very nomadic people because they traveled from place to place. Obviously, that's what that means. But they didn't stay in one place. They followed where the Lord led them at the actual instant that the Lord led them. Eventually they came to, oh, that's a word I'm gonna mess up. You guys ready? Rephidim? Sure, we'll go with that. But there was no water to be found there. Well, probably not. I mean, it's a weird, funky name, but okay. There was no water there. So once more, the people started to grumble and complain to Moses. Okay, so complaining and grumbling are the baby surface words of the feeling of anger and frustration. Frustration and anger are best friends, they go together. And one can be stronger than the other in a certain moment, but they both have the same, emotions that go along with them and reactions usually. Give us water to drink, they demanded. I mean, have you ever had that? Like a little child that's frustrated and they're like, I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty. And they're pulling at you or they're pushing you or they want something from you. That's frustration. Have we all been there? I have. Amen. Let's go. I have been frustrated more times than I'd like to admit. And even if it's just internal frustration is a thing too. Like without voicing it, See, these people are openly yelling at Moses, grumbling, complaining, all that stuff. Quiet, Moses replied. Sounds just like a parrot. Quiet. Why are you arguing with me? And why are you testing the Lord? That sounds just like my grandmother. She would say that to me. She goes, why are you fighting me? Why do you always have to rebel against me? Why are you testing God? My grandma would say that. She was old school, I'll tell you. I was raised by old school. Like, she probably would have looked at me and said quiet. She usually said hush your mouth, but, same thing. But, tormented by thirst, they continued to complain. I mean, to be fair, you can only live 3 days without water, so I can empathize with the people of Israel. But remember, God's a big remember God. Remember, they just walked through an ocean. They just walked through the sea. They just had food rain down from the sky and nourish them. So isn't God going to show up and give them some water? The answer is yes, he is. But that's not the point. The point is, if you just saw this happen before your eyes, physical miracles, you'd think you'd have a little more faith. But that's why God calls us sheep. We're sheep. We're kind of dumb. Because the minute we stop seeing the end point, the minute we stop seeing ahead of us, our faith's gone. We shut down. It's the same thing with anger. The minute we're uncomfortable, we shut down. Because as humans, as Americans, as people, we are accustomed to being comfortable. Being uncomfortable is wrong. It's an inconvenience. So then, if we're inconvenienced, everyone else around us is going to be inconvenienced because we're ticked off. Come on. It's true. It's totally true. Why did you ever take us out of Egypt? Why did you bring us here? We, our children, and our livestock are all going to die. Okay, so now Moses is getting ticked. Okay. Then Moses pleaded with the Lord, what should I do with these people? They're about to stone me. Okay, so that's fear. The Lord said to Moses, take your shepherd's staff, the one you used when you struck the water in the Nile, when you turned the water into blood. Then call on the leaders of Israel to walk ahead of the people. I'll meet you by the rock at Mount Sinai. Strike the rock and the water will come out. Okay, that's very simple. That's a very plain as day instruction from God. Then the people can drink the water. Okay. Moses did what he was told, and the leaders looked on, and water gushed out. Okay. Moses named the place Massa, the place of testing. Okay. And Meribah, a place of arguing. Because the people of Israel argued with Moses and tested the Lord by saying, isn't the Lord going to take care of us? Okay. So, what I really want to focus on here is that Moses named an actual area out of anger and out of arguing. But so did Jesus. Okay? Jesus, see, there's righteous anger and there's, human anger. So I think that was a little bit of human anger because, the people of Israel were being really annoying and kind of high maintenance. But here's Jesus with some righteous anger. We're in Matthew 21, verse 12. Jesus entered the temple and began to drive out the merchants and their customers. He knocked over the tables of the money changers and the stalls of those selling doves. Okay, so Jesus is he's in the temple, which is the church, and they're basically using it as a marketplace. They're not using it in a way that is very holy, and they're not taking it for what it is. They're just using it as a place to fuel their own desires. They use it as money, but fueling your own desires, because what does money do? You cannot love money and God. You have to pick one. You can't be a lover of money and be a follower of God. It just doesn't work. You have to pick one. If you ever notice, God doesn't want us to be poor. God does not want any of his people to be poor. But being rich in God is sometimes being poor in the worldly aspect. It is, because God and the world do not equate the same. We live in a sinful, fallen world. So as you get on down here, he said, the scriptures declare, my temple will be called a place of prayer, but you have turned it into a den of thieves. So when he drove out the merchants and knocked over the tables, that was anger because of the pain, the injustice, and the pain that he felt that those people were inflicting on his father and his father's home. Anger is a serious emotion. It's usually rooted in a lot of feeling of no control, feeling of, you have been wronged in some way, injustice, all of those things. And I guess what I wanted to talk about with it is God can release those things from you, because when you go through a trial or a test, those words don't usually equate easy or are fun. When you go to trial, okay, well, no one likes court, and if you do, you're odd. Because, I mean, we have TV shows, Court Cam or Jail or all those things that we watch, but we watch because there's usually some dramatic thing that happens, or it's a serious or scary thing. It's usually not something that has a lot of laid back, mellow feelings that go along with it. So, when you go through something like that, you have a choice. You have a choice to be angry about it, or you have a choice to see it as something to make you grow stronger. With myself and the feelings of anger that I deal with personally, it is a choice. It's a choice to feel angry. I mean, as humans, we're going to get mad. Things make us mad and stuff like that. But I'm not saying the surface feeling. I'm talking about like rooted, dwelling, like internal, like, God says for a reason, don't go to bed angry, because when you dwell in something, when something is dwelling inside of you, it's making a home there. You're making a foothold for the devil. I'm actually going to read those verses to you because they're really significant. I'm actually going to grab my other Bible real fast. I'll be right back. So this one has like all the notes and all the, I think this Bible has been through a lot. But don't let the sun go down while you're still angry, for anger gives a mighty foothold for the devil. That's Ephesians 4, 26 and 27. A mighty foothold. When you're rock climbing, I used to rock climb for many years, and you need a foothold to propel yourself up. If you're giving yourself a foothold for the devil with anger, yeah, that's not righteous anger. That has zero to do with righteousness. That all has to do with worldly desire and trying to propel yourself forward by stepping on something to go up. I don't know if that made sense how I said that, but righteous anger is like how we feel in I guess the best example is what Jesus gave, is when you feel like somebody is hurting somebody in your life, like your parent, like your father, that would be considered righteous anger, because the pain you're feeling is because something is morally wrong. Like that is morally wrong for against your morals. And worldly anger is basically based on, oh, that made me angry because that inconvenienced me, or it's like a surface feeling. And God doesn't go on feelings. I used to really hate that term, but it's true, because if God went on feelings, we wouldn't have any concrete foundation, because feelings change like that. I mean, I could instantly be angry and someone says sorry to me and then it's over. I'm not angry anymore. So if God did that, if he just changed like on a whim, what foundation is that? There is right and wrong. There are consequences for your sins and mistakes. But I think you guys are tracking with me what I mean. So, all of that weird kind of, ADD way to say that. Anger has a very, very significant role, I think, in society, but also just in our everyday lives as people. And so it's all about how you choose to respond when you start to feel angry. If you continue to dwell and sit in that, it's not going to end well for you. I mean, Moses didn't get to enter the promised land because even though he did what God says, his anger ended up destroying part of his promise, part of his, um, part of his basically his end goal. So that's where the choice is. You can either use something to propel you forward as a test and look at it as God's going with you in it, or you can go your own direction and your own motives and say, no, I'm going to do this on my own, and then suffer the consequences of your anger. Hope you have the best week. See you next time.